Welcome back, my friends, to a new season of TFT Hyper Roll. This is Dragonlands. And before I get into the builds I want to show you that I think will get you to hyper quickly, I really want to call your attention to a video I put out a few days ago. It's linked up at the top, but I feel like it was a little bit suppressed because even though it's gotten a really high click-through ratio, it's gotten very few views, which means YouTube did not push it out to a lot of the people who subscribe to this channel. So please check it out. It's about the fact that Riot is planning on taking Hyper Roll away in the not too distant future, and my thoughts on that. Now let's get to the video at hand. This video is going to be broken into 3 sections. You're in the intro right now, so this is section 1. And here we will talk about what's different this season from last season. Section 2 is going to be a breakdown of builds. I'm going to go through the builds that I have found consistently get me into the top 4 in the PBE. Things could change. Obviously, when they release the final version, they usually make some changes. The third part, I'm saving it for last, are my thoughts on this season. If you care, that will be at the end, because I have some fairly strong opinions about this season versus other seasons. But first, okay, let's discuss what makes this season different from other seasons. Because as you can see, they've kept the augment mechanic from the previous season. You do get the option to re-roll your augments once, so you can choose out of the 3 times you see augments. One of those times, if you don't like anything, you can re-roll them, and maybe you'll get something you like, maybe you won't, but it's a re-roll. Now let's talk about the big overall change. This season has dragons, and try to think of dragons similarly to the way we thought of Chosen. You're only supposed to have 1 on your team. You can have 2. There's an augment for that, or you can do it, but then you lose the benefits you get of having a dragon. The dragon gives you 3 of a particular trait. So for example, Shyvana is a Ragewing. So as long as she is the only dragon on your team, you will go from 3 to 6 Ragewings or 6 to 9 Ragewings. Now the other thing with dragons is they cost more. So a tier 4 dragon costs 8, a tier 5 dragon, well, that actually ends up costing 10. So you want a 2-star tier 5 dragon, that's going to end up costing you 30 gold. So you're going to want to econ even in Hyper Roll if you're running a dragon based build. So rather than take up your time going through all the new traits and classes and how they can match together, I think it'll be best to just get right into the builds that I think you should be looking at. Now, one of the first builds I want to show you, which is probably one of the strongest builds, is Guild Mage. Mage works very similar to the way it worked the last time, in that mages will cast twice. When you have 3 mages, they get 75% of their AP in their double cast. When you get to 5, it's 100%, and then it goes up from there to the point where they're increasing the amount of their spell damage, plus they're casting twice. Rise, which is a tier 3 champion, is incredibly strong, especially with the right items. My favorite combination is what you see right here, which is a blue buff, Rabadon's Death Cap, and then a Hextech Gunblade. Now let me take a moment to explain Rise and why these items. Rise works very interestingly in this set. The amount of orbs he fires and damage he does is based on his maximum mana. It starts at 20 and then increases with each cast. So the more often he casts, the higher his mana gets, which means he'll start casting less often as he gets higher, but those casts will be stronger and stronger. This is why I like blue buff, because it allows him to cast early and often, and then hopefully take down enough of the opposing team so that as he's casting later and later, and you can see it here, it's taking longer and longer for him to power up, but when he does finally cast, he'll absolutely eliminate a team. Also, the Hextech Gunblade works a little differently. It's overall Omnivamp now. So even basic attacks will provide some healing. So you can see when Ryze is basic attacking here, the healing is going out, and when he ultimately casts, boom, things just die. Now let's talk about the combination trait I like most, which is Guild, and let me show you how this all works. Having a guild member on your team will give your entire team that bonus. Sejuani gives everyone 100 health, Twitch 10% attack speed, Ryze plus 10 AP, etc, etc. You can see it on the screen. If you get the emblem, everyone gets plus 3 Omnivamp. The guild members themselves gain double, so Ryze is getting 20 ability power, Sejuani's getting 200 health, and then those bonuses are further increased by the number of guild members you have. So if you end up with 6 guild members, you're getting a 240% bonus on top of the bonuses that come, and so it really empowers your entire team, with Mage being so strong and Guild being an overall team strong trait. I find that combination to be absolutely incredible and pretty much will guarantee you a top 4 if you put together the 5 Mage and 5 Guild, which you can do really easy. If you also get an emblem, you can do the 5 Mage 6 Guild. And since we're actually at this point in the video, I want to divert and just talk about this round 7-2 in Hyper Roll. You get a treasure dragon. You can get all kinds of things out of this, from gold to completed items to spatulas, and you can roll it a few times to get exactly what you want. It's a fairly good round, but it's kind of a weird pause in the game, and you have to be careful at the very end of it, because if you haven't locked, it counts this as a battle round and will refresh your shop on you. So when that counts down to 0, the shop will refresh, and if you are planning on buying something down there, it will disappear. It's happened to me several times throughout the PBE. I've now gotten used to it, but the first few times, yeah, it was a little bit of a mess because I didn't expect it to happen. One of the keys to the guild build, and I will go through another after this, is getting Bard, and that's because his ult will stun the team, but unlike in regular League, where it puts them in stasis, in TFT, when they are in that little Bard bubble, they take increased damage. So they're stunned and taking additional damage, which makes it really, really hard to beat a team with a Bard on it. And as I mentioned, Mage is not the only combination I found that works with Guild. If you can get yourself to 6 Guild, you can use a lot of different traits. I found Swift Shot really good. Since Twitch is a Swift Shot, you can bring Xayah into it, and she is incredibly strong. She's a 4-cost unit. If you can get her up to silver, 2 stars, she will tear a team apart, as you will see right here. Overall still, if I have a choice and an easy option, I'm gonna go with Mage Guild as my primary build. But of course, Guild is not the only way to go. Allow me to introduce you to Nomsy. Nomsy is what comes out on the board when you have the trainers. The trainers are Heimerdinger, Lulu, and Tristana. All you need is 2 of them to summon Nomsy. If you happen to have all 3, then it will increase Nomsy's abilities by 100%. Nomsy breathes fire, as you will see right there, and does a lot of damage to people. Nomsy also levels up based on how many snacks Nomsy is fed. The higher the star level of the trainer champions, and the more of them there are on the board, the more snacks Nomsy will get, and the faster Nomsy will grow. And we will see Nomsy enjoying some snacks in a moment. There you go, Nomsy. Enjoy. But the question is, what build works best with Nomsy? There are actually 2, although the one I'm about to show you is my favorite. So Tristana is a Canoneer and so is Jinx, meaning they do additional damage every 5th attack. But the real fun to this build is that both Jinx and Tahm Kench are Revel champions, meaning every time they cast an ability, they shoot a firework doing additional magic damage to the teams. So once you line them all up, you end up with lots of additional damage happening, and let me show you how this looks when it's done. So your Canoneers are Jinx, Tristana, Senna, and Corki. Your Revel champions are Tahm Kench, Sona, Jinx, and Corki. So there's a lot of crossover here, and you will see how much damage they do and how quickly they do it. Tahm Kench and Nomsy end up acting as your tanks, while your cleanup crew behind with the Canoneers and the Revels just do a ton of damage. When you get to level 9, I like to fill in with Ornn because that will give you additional Bruiser, which will give a little more health to your team overall. But as I said before, there is more than one way to play with Nomsy. You can also play off of Heimerdinger's Mage trait in order to do a combination Mage, Trainer, Guild build, and that's what you see here. Ultimately, you're going to have Heimer as a mage, and then bring in Rise and Lilia for the minimum 3 mages. Lilia also pairs up really well alongside Sejuani since they're both Cavaliers. Sejuani is also Guild, so you have Sejuani and Rise, and then you just grab a couple of other Guild champions. Most importantly, as always, will be Bard. In this case, I put in Twitch. It could have been Talon as also a Guild champion. In this case, I happen to have a Mage cap that I was able to put on Lulu, so I didn't need the additional Mage. But overall, you want to try to get to 5 mages, 3 trainers, and then just as many guilds as you can fit in. Right now, I'd like to move over to my personal favorite build and what my kid likes to call Dragonmancer Mishmash, and it is using a combination of different traits to create a ridiculously OP Volibear. And it has been nerfed in the PBE a couple of times because it's just so sinister, but no matter how many times they have nerfed it, when I decide to do it, I have not failed to get into the top 4. For a while, it was an absolute guaranteed win. Not a guaranteed win anymore, but you will get top 4 with it. And there's a very specific way to build it, and a very specific set of items. The items are what you see here. It's going to be on Volibear. You want a Bloodthirster, which by the way is now Omnivamp, so you're going to be regaining health for everything. But you want the Bloodthirster, the Rageblade, and the Quicksilver. You also want the 3 legendary champs, which are Anivia, Ornn, and Volibear. And what happens is Volibear will absorb the champion next to him and gain their health. Ornn will absorb the champion next to them and gain their health. Anivia, the champion next to them, gain their health. You get it. But Volibear ends up with a ridiculous amount of health and the ability to heal. And you can see just ends up tearing through opposing teams. Between Volibear and Anivia, the game just gets out of control very quickly. I also like to throw Jade in there whenever possible, so Volibear is attacking a little bit faster and getting a little bit more health. But again, and this is against a Nomsy Mage team, watch what happens. Volibear absorbs Lee Sin, then ults becomes huge. Ornn's also huge, as well as Anivia. Now Anivia's ult is creating a cone that reduces their magic resist, and Volibear is doing magic damage on every 4th strike. So everything is working against teams when you put this combination together. In general, my goal is to try to get a blue buff on Anivia. If I can make a Morellonomicon, I like to get that, but it's not always available. And then any type of AP amplifying. I like to get all my tank items onto Ornn, and again, the key 3 items on Volibear. Again, watch it in action. Anivia becomes huge, Volibear becomes huge, Ornn becomes huge. Yes, you have less players on the board, but they are so strong that even against overpowered dragons, they are often able to pull it out for the victory. So at this point, you might be saying, what the heck? You've shown us a bunch of builds, but this is Dragonlands. Where are the dragon builds? Why aren't I seeing those? And I'll get a lot more into that when I talk about this set in general, but let me show you a couple of dragon builds that you can think about doing. I tend to find these builds a little bit risky because they require ultimately finding something like Shyvana, who is a tier 5, 10 cost dragon. That will ultimately bring you up to 9 Ragewing, which is very, very powerful. It's a fairly simple build in that you're just following a single trait and then whatever else you can get to fit in with it. I find I don't like to go for it unless I'm able to get a Ragewing emblem early so that I can get to 6 Ragewings at stage 6. If you don't, you're going to have trouble getting Xayah because she's a 4 cost and you're not likely to get her until 7, and she's your 6th Ragewing. So if you have a Ragewing emblem, you can put it on someone like Jinx, who will also be a 2nd Canoneer to Senna, so you will have additional power there. Ragewing is a really fun trait to play. You get increased attack speed and you get Omnivamp, and at 9 you're getting 100% Omnivamp. If you watch Xayah in the corner, she becomes almost impossible to take down as she heals back almost as fast as they can damage her. Ultimately, as I mentioned before, how strong she is, when she rakes her feathers back, she can wipe out an entire team. But I do caution, do not try to force this build. If you don't get a Ragewing emblem, it's going to be difficult through level 6, and you're going to have trouble if you don't get a Shyvana in the end, so you can bring it up to 9. Another dragon build you may want to consider is Astral, but don't make the mistake that I made in this match I'm showing you and get any additional Astral Heart or Astral Crown or anything like that. You do not need it. There are 6 Astral champions, and then there's Aurelion Soul, the Astral Dragon, and that will take you to 9, and that's all you will ever need. The way Astral works is pretty simple. Once you get 3 Astrals, every 5th shop will have an increased chance of getting additional Astrals. It's kind of like this season's Yordles in that you're going to be able to get your champions up to gold pretty easily. When you get to 6, you get bigger and bigger orbs that have more and more money in them to help you buy those Astrals. And when you get to 9, those orbs might have item components in them. But the build is ultimately dependent on getting Aurelion Soul. It's very hard to win without Aurelion Soul in the match. But you do have a good chance of getting into the top 4 because you're going to have a lot of gold champions. If you find Aurelion Soul, you then want to do everything you can to get all the AP items on as quick as possible. If you happen to have a Mage emblem, that will work great, because Nami, who is an Astral, is also a Mage, and Vladimir, who is an Astral, is also a Mage. So you will have the 3 Mages, and Aurelion Soul will cast twice. My concern with this build is that it is reliant on finding a very hard to find dragon. You don't always get it, and you certainly don't always get a Mage emblem so that you can turn Aurelion Soul into an absolutely team-sucking beast. So these are the builds I recommend, and I was able to get myself up to Hyper pretty quickly in the PBE using a combination of these builds. Hopefully this helps you get up to Hyper. But this is the part of the video where I want to talk about this set in general, and if you're still here, maybe you care, maybe you don't, I don't know. But it's my channel, so I'll talk anyway. I like and appreciate what they were trying to do with the dragon concept. Introducing champions unique to TFT that have their own abilities and help fill out builds is really kind of a cool idea. The problem is that the entire set feels much more RNG driven than pretty much any previous set, second maybe to the Chosen, which was my least favorite set of all because the entire game became just a race to 8, dump your team, find the highest level Chosen you can, and rebuild around it. And who won or lost was based far more on luck than it was on planning and skill. There are a few builds here, and I've shown them to you, that still sort of have that concept of building up. The Dragonmancer is a great example of that. But a lot of the builds, the Tempest, the Mirage, the Whisper builds, they are all reliant on high-level dragons being found at the right time to finish it out. and if you don't get them, you end up in the bottom 4. If you do get them, you can win the match. For me personally and my style of play, this feels like a step backwards. It's more of what 6.5 brought into the game than what 6.0 brought into the game. And I'm sure there are a ton of people who think I am fundamentally wrong on this because they like the RNG aspect or feel that there isn't really an RNG aspect anyway. It's still based on skill, and it is to some point. You do need to know the build and synergies to make it all work out. But having played Ragewing and Astral a few times and had to roll through 50 gold to find a single tier 5 dragon to fill out the build, well, that was a little bit frustrating to me compared with Dragonmancer, where it's not that hard to get the Ornn that you need to ultimately finish it off, and your carry is a standard 3 cost. Same thing with the guild mage builds and the trainer mage builds I showed. Your carries are 3 costs and 2 costs, and it's much easier to get them and then just think about building the synergies and building the team. Anyway, that's my hot take on this for whatever it's worth. Hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the set. I think if you follow these builds, if they haven't changed them too much between the PBE and release, they'll get you into hyper pretty quickly. Hope you have an absolutely awesome day.